Hey everyone, and welcome to my top 10 A24 films. My name is Colin.
And my name is AJ.
And I'm so excited to be making this video. Wait, who are you?
I'm AJ at A24 on YouTube. We've been playing on this collaboration for about a month now. And when Colin from... Wait, what's this? Entertainment? Come on. Yeah, Colin and I became friends when he slid into my DMs, and by my DMs, I mean my letterboxd comment box, and asked to do a collab. And I am now being tied up to a chair against my own will to do this collab. I've been here so long that we've divulged personal information to each other that we will never be able to take back, and if it leaked to the internet, your career would be ruined forever. So you should probably let me have this because you wouldn't want the world to know that you
Okay, AJ, welcome to the channel. I'm so glad to have you here. Buddy, pal, amigo.
Yeah, let's just get on with it.
Alright then, everyone, here are our...
Top 10 A24 films.
Jesus Christ.
The Lighthouse. One thing Robert Eggers has proven himself to be a master at is atmosphere. Within the first 5 minutes of The Lighthouse, the way he sets up this world immediately sucked me in. The use of music, the ear-piercing sound design, the black and white claustrophobic cinematography sets up this really gross but weirdly satisfying atmosphere, and that kind of tone never lets up throughout the whole movie. Eggers has also shown to be a master of authenticity. It's clear how much work was put into this to actually make it feel like the late 1800s, even to accurately depict how people talk. I heard that he used journals from old lighthouse keepers to write the dialogue, and even if you don't like The Lighthouse, you have to give some props to that kind of information. The Lighthouse is a movie that knows exactly what it is, and isn't afraid to go fully insane. There are things that don't make any sense in this movie, and I think that's kind of the point. We're looking at the point of view of someone who's literally losing his mind, and the way this whole film is presented makes you feel like you're losing your mind with him. I haven't seen anything quite like this movie, so much so that it's actually kind of hard to review.
Under the Skin. It is an absolute travesty that Jonathan Glazer hasn't made a feature since this, because it's undoubtedly one of the best sci-fi films to come out within the past decade. Everything about it is absolutely magnificent and goes above and beyond. Scarlett Johansson turns in what I would argue is her best performance ever. My apologies to Marriage Story and her stance, as her true disconnect from humanity and genuine attempts to understand the things going on around her is enthralling. Plus, this is the film that introduced Micah Levi to the film world, and that is a blessing because she is one of the best composers working today. And the hypnotic and daunting strings that are constantly present add so much to the ominous mysticism happening on screen. The shots are breathtaking, and I don't think it could have been set in a better environment than Scotland, as the complete lack of color in the landscapes perfectly adhere to the robotic mannerisms that Johansson displays. Under the Skin grabs you from the moment you enter the van, and the fire within never stops.
Midsommar. I was debating whether to put Hereditary or this for my 9th spot, but Midsommar, the more I watch it, keeps getting better and better. This movie is so layered and beyond traditional filmmaking that I always pick up on something new every time I watch it. And the more I watch it, the less boring it becomes. This quickly became one of the least boring movies I've ever seen. One might say it's too slow, and it is, but I believe the slowness adds more to the unsettling nature of it all, as if there's no possible way out of this nightmare. Ari Aster took advantage of every frame. Really, within every shot, there's something new to catch, and it gives a lot of depth to one of the characters or just creatively foreshadows something in the movie. Anyway, I could talk for hours about Midsommar, but I'll just leave it at Ari Aster is one to look out for, and he's quickly becoming a new favorite of mine.
Locke. So, nobody talks about Locke. And I genuinely think that that is a problem, especially because of how film school kids geek out over Tom Hardy in films like The Revenant and Mad Max, when his best performance ever is clearly in this. The film is simply a masterclass by an actor who is alone in his car with nothing to play off of other than a couple of sporadic phone calls from people like Olivia Colman and Tom Holland. And if you were to question whether the director deserves any praise whatsoever, the next film he directed was Serenity. And we all know how that turned out. No. This is Tom Hardy completely losing himself in his acting and carrying an entire film by himself. Sure, the shots are proficient and the story is pretty damn intriguing, but there is no denying that Hardy manages to pack the grandest punch ever. And the fact that he didn't get nominated for an Oscar riles me up to this day. It's a contained film that defies genre. Locke is something that is definitely worth 90 minutes of your time.
A Ghost Story. When I rewatched A Ghost Story for this video, I completely forgot how scarce the dialogue for this movie actually is. In fact, I completely forgot how quiet it truly is. In fact, I completely forgot about how devastating it actually is. This film is visual poetry. The film doesn't need dialogue to drive its story along. It's easy to just pinpoint everything out just by the overall atmosphere, the bizarre premise, and the expressions of the characters' faces. This is made to feel like a whole movie, and it gives off such a comforting vibe. It's weirdly one of the most comforting movies I've ever seen, where the lack of sound and uninterrupted shots puts us in this really quiet atmosphere, and just lets everything wash over you. It's made to show us that not every paranormal occurrence can be frightening. Instead, what if there was a more emotionally devastating meaning behind that paranormal activity? What if it's just a cry for mercy, while also giving a message about life that will forever leave an impact on me?
The Farewell. I went into an early screening of this with a pretty skeptical mindset, and I left emotionally moved. As someone who has had to deal with death in regards to a lot of my family members, this hit home more than I could imagine. I've been involved in a debate of whether or not someone should be informed how bad they were actually doing, and it is devastating beyond what you can imagine. Awkwafina is someone that I hadn't liked at all and thought was as close to talentless as you can get. And to see her pull out a showstopper here was awe-inspiring. Every performance is so grounded in reality, and both sides of the family have understandable points in the debate. Lulu Wang's vision shines so brightly, and something about the cinematography is almost holistic, as there's a level of blending between the characters and the backdrops, as if everyone is a part of everything, which is a theme that I believe is pushed throughout the runtime. In addition, the balance of drama and humor and the incorporation of the two into each other adds another dimension of emotional depth to this already perplexing piece of cinema. It's a true story that has a whole lot of true heart behind it.
The Lobster. I talked about this in my favorite movies video, and I honestly don't know what else to add. I like what I said, so I'm just gonna cheat and repeat what I said. Yorgos Lanthimos is one of my top 5 favorite directors working today. He puts such an interesting and weird style to all of his movies, and The Lobster is the epitome of his style. The Lobster is such a bizarre yet fascinating look at relationships, and how we feel forced to get ourselves into a relationship without even really thinking about it. The monotone that these people talk in, I think, is supposed to show the lack of connection and interest that these people share with each other. Kind of like the lack of connection one might feel when entering a relationship too fast. Yorgos isn't afraid to push the boundaries of traditional filmmaking and writing, and The Lobster shows that in the best way possible. The bizarre humor is genuinely hilarious. The dark tone that the film has is genuinely cringe-inducing in a good way. Case in point, I haven't seen anything like The Lobster, and I will probably never see anything like The Lobster.
Krisha. The fact that Trey Edward Schultz puts out deeply rooted emotional films that have completely different tones and genres every other year and still doesn't get the recognition he deserves is blasphemous. And honestly, I think that his debut film is the best. The fact that Krisha was made for $30,000 is insane, because the production value is on par with every single one of the other films on this list. The actors are Schultz's family, but you would never be able to guess because they all, especially the titular Krisha Fairchild, put out wonderful performances that perfectly captured the awkward tension of a family getting together, and the outsider mentality that one can have when coming back to a situation that they may not be welcomed in. The cinematography is incredibly crisp, and looks like it was shot on an Arri Alexa, which, given the budget, is bewildering. The combination of a unique and wholly unsettling story and some innovative technical aspects settle Krisha in firmly as number 7 on my list.
The end of the tour. This is one of the most wholesome movies I've ever seen, and it's also the movie that made me pay attention to A24. What makes the end of the tour so special is the chemistry between David Foster Wallace and David Lipsky. Not trying to spoil much, but when the film starts, they're not even together, but you can still see how much of an impact one had on the other. When we do see them together, you can tell that Lipsky is deeply influenced by Wallace's philosophies. Even though Lipsky is there to interview him, he seems to be more invested in his friendship with Wallace. And we get invested in what they're saying to each other because of the sharp dialogue and the performances. Jesse Eisenberg added a lot of authenticity to his role as David Lipsky, but Jason Segel is a revelation. He manages to capture the personality of David Foster Wallace to a T, and completely disappears into the role. From the moment you see him, you can see the passion he has for everything around him. Willing to go into deep conversations about the most trivial of things. The End of the Tour is one of my favorite movies because of its overwhelming heart, and it's one that I'll watch many, many times.
First Reformed. Paul Schrader is a filmmaker that I have a very hit or miss relationship with. But yeah, this was a dart thrown right into the middle of the inner circle for me. I know that this is a more corny thing to say, but I genuinely questioned putting this on the list because First Reformed isn't really a film to me. It's an experience. I watched this for the first time in a second-rate theater all by myself, and holy moly, by the time the final credits wrapped up, I was in a state of complete and utter shock. The way that the ethereal vibe that the script and themes give off contrasts with the rather drab color palette and minorly off-kilter shot style is so brilliant. The scene where Amanda Seyfried and Ethan Hawke are floating through space is almost Lynchian for the modern era. The fact that this didn't win a single award is treasonous, and Ethan Hawke deserved the Best Actor win over every single other performance from that year. For me, this is the best film of 2018, right behind Mandy, and deserves an immense amount of recognition.
American Honey. I hate myself for not seeing this in a theater. I am not going to get into much detail about this. It's best to just experience this without people telling you much, because that's what this is, an experience. This film has an energy that does not let up. From the moment it starts, and it has a sense of realism that's so haunting yet so beautiful. It forces you to keep watching all the way through. Andrea Arnold immediately puts you in this road trip with all these people, and by the end you feel a bit breathless, like you had some emotional punch to the gut, but you want to experience this all over again. American Honey is just pure adrenaline. It gives me this high that I've been longing for, and I'll be watching this for the rest of my life. And the final 5 minutes, without giving anything away, is one for the history books.
Good time. Now, I know that recency bias could be a factor of why everyone seems to prefer Uncut Gems, but Good Time is the best Safdie film to me, and it isn't particularly close. Robert Pattinson is the greatest actor working today, and his role as Connie is one for the record books. The pure desperation and hustle that he portrays is so realistic that I don't think anyone could have done it on that level, remotely. OPN kills the score and almost acts as a catalyst for the intense, hectic nature that is emanating from every pore of the film. I even wrote a paper about why Connie is my favorite anti-hero in all of cinema a couple of years ago, and I still stand by that to this day. The Safdie brothers thrive in chaos, and the moment that the film grips you, it will refuse to let you go, even after you've left the theater, as there are a lot of motives and motifs and questions that you will have to spend days thinking about after your first viewing. It's a ride and a half, if you're okay with a little bit of whiplash afterwards.
20th Century Women. Anyone who follows my channel knows that I've talked about this so many times. And can you blame me? Out of all the movies on this list, this is easily the one that I relate to the most. I grew up in a house of women, and I myself am a feminist and was raised that way. So seeing this boy's journey on the road of feminism made me feel like I was watching my teenage self. But it's not just about his journey to finding out he's feminist. This is an overall love letter to the women in Mike Mills' life. It portrays them in the most authentic and beautiful way possible. It portrays feminism for what it truly is, that being the belief that all people are and should be treated as equals, and there is no dominant species. 20th Century Women just feels like a movie made for everyone. There's always a scene, a line, or even a character that anyone can relate to. And for me, I relate to the whole movie. I've said this many times when I talked about this, but this is the kind of movie that I want to make if I ever get the opportunity to make a movie.
Enemy. Ah, yes. This is my initial entrance into art house cinema in my sophomore year of high school. The look on my face as the story continued to unravel switched between twisted in confusion and expanded in disbelief. So while rewatching it, I wondered if my 5-star rating would hold up, and it did. Jake Gyllenhaal is right behind Pattinson for me, and from my experience with double roles, it is very hard for even the best of actors to pull it off without seeming a little forced. And he manages to avoid that and put on a subtly magical performance, which is made up of several nuances that take multiple viewings or a couple of analysis videos on YouTube to catch on to. Denis Villeneuve also has a strong presence behind the camera in this film, as he does with all of his films, and really makes Toronto its own character through the color grading and shot composition. And needless to say, the script is pretty heady and there are a multitude of ways to interpret the story, including the final 2 shots, which are up there as one of the best. Enemy is just great. Plain and simple.
Moonlight. I know some people probably expected this to be higher, and for a while it was my number 1. Seriously, the top 3 right now are very interchangeable. I've been switching it, but when I was doing my A24 binge and did many rewatches, I just watched 2 more movies that resonated with me just a little bit more. Moonlight is a masterpiece in every single meaning of the word. The view on life is so grim, yet so hopeful and mesmerizing. Every single shot in this movie has something of merit to say, whether it be Juan teaching Chiron to swim, teenage Chiron looking at himself in the mirror, or that haunting final shot, which is one of my favorite final shots in film history. Every single shot and line of dialogue in this movie is so carefully planned out and executed. It's clear that Barry Jenkins put a lot of soul and ambiguity into his film, and by the opening 10 minutes, you'll know how personal it is. I think this movie is all about how to fully accept who you truly are, no matter who you are and where you come from. And it's told in such a haunting yet cathartic way. Moonlight is a movie for everyone.
The Lighthouse. I hate to sound like a part of the chorus, but this is genuinely a god-tier film. Everything is perfectly sewn together like a seamless pattern on the quilt your grandmother made you to cuddle under during infanthood. There's so much of interest in this world that Eggers constructs, and we only get to see a sliver of it. Yet there is never a moment of relief as it drags you through the mud as long as it has a hold on you. There's a level of meticulousness in every single shot, and there's so much in the story that I got a grasp on by simply observing the background and the actions occurring in it. The range in Pattinson's performance is absolutely insane, and you wouldn't think that he would be able to be topped. Yet Willem Dafoe comes out of absolutely nowhere and steals the show as one of the most conniving characters that I've ever seen on screen. The parallels are unmatched, the score is haunting, the aspect ratio, the black and white palette, and the absolute heart of this script leads to one of the inarguably best A24 films.
The Last Black Man in San Francisco. I keep switching between this and Moonlight for my number 2 spot, but for now, The Last Black Man in San Francisco is going to sit at my number 2 spot by a hair. I will never forget seeing this in the theater, all by myself, and just being in absolute fucking awe during the opening 5 minutes, and being completely dumbfounded for the rest of the runtime. Joe Talbot and Jimmy Fails focus so much on color, and they try so many filmmaking techniques, and even balance different genres, and use it to make its narrative and symbolism clear, and throughout all of it, it never feels out of focus. This movie takes a lot of risk, and breaks so many filmmaking rules, but it never feels pretentious in the slightest. It feels like I'm watching a visual poem. A poem about one's detachment from his own city and how he wants to be someone greater than he already is. From the opening 10 minutes, I knew I was watching a masterpiece, as it doesn't piss around and the film's message is immediately given to us. We also get some of the best shots I have ever seen in a movie, as well as some of the best music, not even in just the opening 10 minutes. Seriously though, this movie is one of the best looking movies I've ever seen. Almost every shot is framed perfectly, and its use of symmetry makes the film all the more beautiful. Every shot looks like a photography piece that you would see in an art museum, and the way that San Francisco is used makes it a character in of itself. Talbot doesn't waste a shot here, and the dreamlike score here is his match. It's one of my new favorite scores, and this is one of my new favorite movies.
The Last Black Man in San Francisco. This and my number 1 are very close, but the fact that this slides in at number 2 is nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, I might like The Last Black Man in San Francisco more than my number 1 pick at this point. It's so vibrant and beautiful in every single way, and the fact that director Joe Talbot and lead Jimmy Fails came up from the ground of a Kickstarter campaign for this project is truly astonishing. Jonathan Majors puts out one of the best performances of the decade and perhaps ever as Mont here, and the fact that he isn't a star in Hollywood yet is almost reprehensible. The score by Emile Morrissey is just like a warm blanket that I honestly cannot go a single day without listening to. Everything on screen pops through a perfect and I try to avoid using the word perfect unless I actually believe it, combination of technical elements that utilizes every single bit of space on screen and its composition. I love this movie so much that I have 2 different posters of it hanging in my room. It's magnificent, marvelous, and most importantly, incredibly moving.
Lady Bird. I may get hate for this, and you know what? I don't care. If anyone knows me at all, they know how much I love this movie. They've heard me obsess over it, and they've heard me obsess over Gerwig's filmography so far. She's my favorite up-and-coming director and writer. Lady Bird might be top 3 screenplays of the 2010s decade for me. The way Gerwig talks about home is something that's always stuck with me. It's so unique and personal. We're looking at the perspective of someone who throughout the whole thing hates where she is, and because of that she's a cynic, but as she finally leaves, she realizes that Sacramento was home all along. It's about realizing that you had everything you needed in your life where you were originally, but consistently acting before you think. It's about thinking everything is unfair, but later on understanding what the real world is actually like. Gerwig captures that beautifully. Lady Bird is my favorite A24 movie because Greta Gerwig fully understands not only her own life, but everyone's life. There's always something here to relate to, like daydreaming of a better life, or pretending to be someone you're not, or the random intense arguments with your family. And what's even better about it is that it's never overly dramatic, but it's also never overly sentimental. It's just trying to portray that kind of behavior as authentic as possible, so when that reality kicks in, the emotional weight of it hits you like a truck. Gerwig has proven to be a master of developing characters, balancing tones, and delivering a payoff that just sticks with you. That's why she's my favorite up-and-coming director and writer, and that's why Lady Bird is my favorite A24 movie.
Moonlight. Who could have possibly seen this coming? It's not like I've put out a video essay on its use of water that one could call genius, as well as an open letter to the director of said film where I discuss how said film affected me for years and years. Moonlight is a magnum opus, perfect in every single conceivable aspect. It's one of the few films that I've encountered where it is near impossible to find someone who has anything bad to say about it. This is one of the best ensemble casts that I have witnessed on screen. Mahershala Ali, Ashton Sanders, Janelle Monáe, Trevante Rhodes, Naomi Harris, Jareel Jerome, Andre Holland, Alex Hibbert. There is not a performance out of place. Everything about this film is right where it's supposed to be. I could go on extensively about the magic Moonlight possesses, and actually I have, but I won't do that here. Just know that this isn't just the best A24 film. It's one of the best films that I have ever laid eyes on. Alright everyone, now that the video is over, here are the announcements that I promised you. First of all, go follow AJ. His link will be in the description. He's pretty awesome. Next, I've noticed that my film videos are starting to fall out of consistency with what I am doing on this channel. However, I in no way want to stop making them and absolutely love making video essays and more fun type videos on films. So in order to appease myself on both fronts, I'm starting a new channel with my good friend who you saw in this video, AJ. The channel will be called The Ego Essayists, and I'm highly excited to start that venture as soon as possible. And also, we will be starting a podcast called The Cool Guys Cast, where we will be discussing a combination of films and music. If you are interested in watching my more film-based content, I highly recommend following both of those platforms, and the links will be in the description. It would mean the literal world if you did, and that would provide me some security that some of you guys still do want to see film-based content. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.